Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Um, I'll do a quick introduction, and then I'd love for, if there's a way for us to have people also participate and share their thoughts and comments. I would love participation throughout. So yeah, I'll kind of go with that. And Dominique, I might need some help just figuring out, like, if there's a way I can see people who are participating and stuff. I think.
You can go to LinkedIn, your event, and you can hit the join button and probably
Ah,
mute. And
oh,
then people will leave comments, and I will be kind of the moderator. So if there's any questions, I will just jump in and
no.
say who will ask you. So if you watch this online, the reason why we have this online is that you can interact with the speaker.
Mhm.
Yeah, so yeah, feel free to put your kind of questions on the comments, and I will jump in and kind of ask Aditi, and Aditi will answer it. Okay, so let's start.
Perfect. So I'm gonna get started here with maybe a quick introduction about myself. So hi everyone, my name is Aditi. I'll go kind of bottom to top. I started. I currently am an AR/VR product manager, but I started with a background in electrical and electronics engineering, and I think when I was studying it, I didn't really know much about AR VR at that point, and I didn't know that the industry is going to boom in this way. But I think it's all coming back now. It's really great that I was able to learn about signal processing back then and robotics, and it's kind of coming to bear now. Following that, I realized that I think engineering was one piece of the puzzle for me, and I wanted to expand out. And specifically, I wanted to get more of a background in user-centered design as well as business. And so that's what I did my master's in. And the program that I went to, they packaged it up really nicely and called this new product innovation. So how do you launch a new product to the market? Make sure your engineering set, your design set, you have a business plan. And I took to this like a fish to water. It was, it set my brain on fire. It was really great. Um, and so pretty soon after that, I joined Walmart, where I've worked for the past 6 years. Um, I worked through a few different teams there. So I was a UX designer on a data visualization team. I did UX, product, and client engagement when my team was working to build um, digital advertising, which would go in a retail, like in a Walmart store. And then the past 2 years, I've been a product manager on software applications for various AR and VR headsets. So as a team, we built apps for the Microsoft HoloLens for store associates, like the employees who work in Walmart stores. We also have built, using the Magic Leap, some experience for customers who shop in Walmart stores. And then on MetaQuest and Apple Vision Pro, we've got software apps that we've planned or tried to build for these devices. And it's spread across, customers to be able to shop using, let's say, a MetaQuest at home, or corporate employees to be using an Apple Vision Pro while they work. So that's a little bit about my background. I still feel new to the XR industry in many ways, because I know 2 years is not a lot compared to the deep knowledge and expertise that a lot of people have in this industry. And so as we go through this talk, I'm very curious to learn from the folks who are on this call as well, about if they have knowledge to share, input and insights. I think that just makes it a better discussion. Um, so with that, I'm going to share my screen real quick, and um, I think I'd love to get the discussion started. Dominique, how does that sound to you?
Sounds good.
Yeah, and so far, I think everybody just kind of observing. So far, we have 21 people watch online live. And feel free to put your comments, questions on the LinkedIn live chat, and I will jump in and ask Aditi. Okay, Aditi, go ahead. Thank you.
Excellent. And so, as I said, I want to make this very interactive if possible. Um, and so we've heard a little bit about me, and we've done kind of my introduction. But as we go through, I'd also love to hear from the folks who are listening live. You know, are you already do you feel like you've been a part of the XR industry for a long time, or are you attending this in hopes of learning something new about it? What are some of your roles? So please throw that into the chat if you can, and I'd love to hear a little bit about you as well. And so the way I'm going to structure this talk is 2 or 3 sections. Number one, I want to dwell on where I believe the current state of the XR industry is. And then after that, I'd like to talk about what are some of the strategies that companies have taken, and what are some different strategies that we're seeing? How do we interpret what different companies are doing? And then I think I want to talk about or the road that we still have to go, the journey we still have to take going forward, because this industry, like we are not done yet. We have so much important work still to do. And what are some of the challenges that we need to solve going forward? So that's kind of how I'll structure my talk. But before I dive in, I know we've got some folks even on the Zoom call, and maybe quickly, I'd love to hear, you know, uh, Jim, you'd been doing a little introduction before we started the live, but maybe just for the sake of the call, I'd love for the group to also hear a little bit about you and Lily. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Lily, why don't you go ahead and go first, and then I'll follow.
I have a background or really any knowledge of the XR industry. I had joined the team with Dominic to do marketing, and my background is actually more in the public relations, kind of social media, and the fashion industry. So I am like a complete beginner and to like the industry in general.
That's pretty cool, Lily. Like you've jumped into a space, and you know, it's great to see that you come with a really strong background in fashion, PR, social media. That's very exciting.
Yeah, and actually Lily helped us a lot and create bunch of like a great event and coordinate, and Lily is perfect. Yeah, so that's me just jumping, and maybe I don't know, either Holman or Jean.
Well, I'll go ahead, and I think Lily has helped illustrate your book. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes, Lily is amazing. She can learn everything within 1 week. I remember she just like she doesn't know how to use Figma, but she got something to do, and she just learn and execute at the same time. So I don't know how this operate, but Lily is amazing. Yeah.
Okay, I'm Jim. I used to help Dominique run her meetup groups. I have 3 degrees in electrical and computer engineering, several commercially successful patents. I worked in the defense, semiconductor, automotive, and entertainment industries, and do 3D photography, including shooting Vogue, Chanel, and Maxim models. I've also helped a major automotive manufacturer implement my graduate research in their self-driving car. And that research was a system funded by DARPA using computer vision to locate other moving vehicles and pedestrians for automated self-navigation. So that's me.
That's so cool, Jim. Like I feel like we could nerd out on a few of those topics
Yeah.
for many hours. And Jim, have you been in the XR industry for a while, would you say?
Well, I've been sort of tagging along with Dominique for the past, I don't know, a couple of years or so. So I've been writing some code for Vision Pro and so forth. And I found that it was sort of difficult to get information during the beta program for Vision Pro. And so I
Okay.
thought, well, I'll get one. I'll just wait till I get one, and then it will be much easier to develop for it. And I think that's probably the case.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's so much easier to build on a device when you have it with you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And anyone else that wants to do, Dom, if you want to tell the group a little bit about you, and Homan, if you would want to as well, that would be great.
Holman, do you wanna go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm a hobbyist. I'm a web developer, and I kind of got into the VR XR during the pandemic when I got myself a Quest 1, maybe before the pandemic.
Mhm.
And I am someone that doesn't like apps. Like I don't like downloading. I don't like how they're gated. So I kind of went the web VR
Mhm.
route and just thought I'd teach myself from scratch. Like I don't know anything about gaming really, but I just thought it shouldn't be that hard to create virtual reality social experiences. It should be just everybody should be able to make their own independent website and make their own independent world. So I kind of went down
Mm.
that road, but I'm coming from the area of a tinkerer, and so I'm just sort of self-taught in that area.
Love that. And I think that's a really interesting perspective on, apps versus web, which I'm excited to dig into a little bit as we go down the talk. Come on.
Yeah.
Dom, you want to?
Oh, yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Dominic, and I've been hosting this types of events since 2019. And my original goal is a long time ago, I live around Burbank. And every time, like back in 2018 or 17, every time when I want to join a XR event, I need to drive 2 hours to Santa Monica and drive back. And I was like, hey, is there any meetup in East LA that I can, just be there and drive less? And there are a lot of parking spot that is free. So
Mhm.
that's why I start Extrality. And at the beginning, I was like, yeah, I mean, see, like every Saturday, the goal of this is every Saturday. I know now it's changing, but every Saturday you come here, there's always something to learn, something to see, something to talk, something to discuss. So that's the original mission. It's just like let's gather together and start sharing, start brainstorming. And at the beginning, it was just me. So I was like, okay, so I would just like show up and start presenting. And long time ago, it was in Burbank. We work, and I ran a little conference room, and I bought pizza. Those like types of things. Those are in person. And later on, I moved to Santa Monica, and it hosts in Santa Monica. We work, and later on, COVID outbreak, so we started become like a virtual. So this is the entire story. And now it becomes more like a, hey, sometimes we have speaker events, sometimes we have like a skill share, but I like to keep it weekly
Mhm.
because make it a hobby, right? Just like a home and hobbyist. But this is how we improve ourselves. And later on, start from March 30th, because I find out that there are so many, you see, like XR creators, amazing creators now is looking for, something to do. So I was thinking about there might be some opportunities for us to transfer to more like podcast. So
Mhm.
later on, I will invite a lot of XR, not non-XR industry leaders. And
Mhm.
when I reach out, a lot of people say, I don't know anything about XR. Why reach out to me? And I say, that's perfect. We just don't want anybody who knows XR keep talking about XR here. We want to
Yeah.
reach out. So we want to see, and there are not many enterprise that
Mhm.
kind of integrating. I mean, probably some, but not enough to keep XR creators to get a lot of offers. So what we are doing is reach out to people who has expertise, who has problems in their field. And we have tons of XR creators. We want to link them so they can work together. So that's like my next goal, which will happen. Start with March 30th. We will have a series of podcasts. And you see, I start dressing more like a human now before I dress more sweaters. So
Yeah.
so it will be the upcoming one. And Aditi, if you are interested, feel free. I will invite you later. So
Mhm.
this will be really interesting. But I mean,
Perfect.
that's
Yeah.
the way, and I don't want to grab all the attention. I'm sorry. So I
No, no,
will
no. No,
pass
it's
the
always
baton.
Tom, it's always exciting to hear like what you're up to. And yeah, if anyone knows about Dom's work, go read her book and watch her upcoming, listen to her upcoming podcast. I'm sure it's going to be really fun. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. And feel free to throw things into the LinkedIn chat as well. So I'm going to start off on sort of where are we at right now, right? And we've had some really big recent events. So we've had the Apple Vision Pro launch. We heard that there are like Apple had forecast that they would want to sell about 400,000 headsets. That was the big rumor. Of course, Apple, I don't think ever confirms that, but that was the big rumor. And there are predictions that Apple has already sold 200,000 Vision Pros, which is a much quicker than expected uptake by the community. We know that Meta launched multiple devices in October last year, and Meta Quest 3 has driven the highest ever Meta VR revenue since Meta Reality Labs started. So, and then there's a number of supporting headlines as well. You know, VR headsets outsold AirPods during Black Friday. So it's a really interesting time to be in. And I'm also fascinated by some of the things that people have started to do with it. So we've seen, I'm sure you all have seen people using VR headsets out in public, like Times Square, and there's been someone who went mountain biking with an Apple Vision Pro. There's people who have used a MetaQuest in a Walmart, and they did their whole shopping journey using a Quest headset on. So people are really going pretty wild and crazy with this. And yeah, I'm curious at this point if has there been maybe like Jim or Lily, if you've seen some of the crazier ones, a favorite one that you'd like to share?
Well, I saw a video. Unfortunately, I don't have the link available right now, but somebody was, I think they were skateboarding in Times Square wearing one,
Wow.
and they wore it around all day long. And
Wow.
it sort of narrows down your peripheral vision, and I tripped over a small box in the living room. So I don't think I would be skateboarding with it.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's wild and fascinating, right? Like what people are doing. Like this is you can kind of feel growth in the air in which people are just pushing the boundaries. Like Apple and Meta have both stated very clearly that they expect this to be used mainly at home, mainly stationary, but people are not having that. People will do what people do, and they're using it for skateboarding, mountain biking, all kinds of crazy things. And so I think when we say, like, we have all these different terms which say we're at an exciting phase of the industry, but I want to spend some time talking about, like, where are we? Because is the XR industry big now? Is it still small? Is it mainstream? Is it not? I think it's actually kind of difficult to verbalize where specifically we are. And so I'd love to spend some time on this as a group, and maybe hear people's opinions. Like, how would you describe where we are now? Yeah, and I'd love to open it up to the group here as well, and anyone in the chat.
Feel free to leave the comments, and I will be the moderator observing. Once there's anyone who is leaving any comments, I will pin the group. So yeah, feel free to leave. And Jim, Holman, Lily, whoever wanna join, feel free.
Well, I think what's interesting is, Apple sold about 200,000. So that means that if you've got one, it's only been distributed in the United States officially. If
Yeah.
you've got one, then you're less than 1 out of every 1,000 people who's got one. And so when I've talked to people and mentioned this, a lot of them didn't know what it was. And so I think we're in sort of that phase right now where people are just learning about it.
Yeah.
I've been interacting with a photographer from National Geographic. He's been shooting for them for 30 years. And I helped him convert some of his images from 2D to 3D. And so he was very excited about all this stuff. So I guess one issue is if you wear glasses and you want to go in for a demo, you may not be able to do that because they may not have the right inserts for your prescription. So
Absolutely.
that may be sort of a hurdle for people trying it out.
I love that. And I think that's hitting on, I think that's a great number. Like, less than 1 in 1,000 people have maybe own an Apple Vision Pro. So that it's a big number, but it's a small number at the same time. Homan, why don't you tell us, like, how do you think about the current stage?
Sorry, I was looking for my unmute button. I want
Yeah.
to wait for a second.
Sure.
What was the question? Where's the XR industry?
Yeah, like, would you describe it as big right now, small, mainstream, just starting? How would you describe the current state of the XR industry?
Definitely just starting, because most people, in my experience of using my headset, is that if I wasn't just developing something for fun, I don't really go into play. I don't use it much. And every person that I personally know that has bought the Quest 1 or Quest 2,
Mhm.
except for with exceptions in this group, have it kind of collecting dust. So,
Yeah.
and they've told me that they're avoiding the Quest 3 and they're avoiding the Apple Vision Pro. It's just like there isn't something compelling. So they were somewhat disenchanted by the first iteration of it, and I think that actually hurt people, because as spectacular as the experience is, I think you become acclimated to it for me,
The-
within 5 minutes. So you can show me the most beautiful beach scene, waterfall, and then it's like, well, what do I do here?
yeah. What's the point, right?
Yeah. So if there isn't something to do, and particularly something that utilizes the spatial, like it really needs it. So if we're just going into the Apple ecosystem to, I don't know, watch videos or send text messages, and it isn't really utilizing spatial computing, then it's like, well, you just made me put on something heavy to
Yeah.
do the same thing.
Yeah.
So for me, the practicality of having like big monitors around me, it's not quite there yet, because it isn't better. It's still worse than whatever you can tactilely touch. Like I don't even like the iPad. I don't like touching glass most of the time. I like actual physical keyboards for most of the things. I think there are utilities for um like training people in spatial situations, like in an OR room, or underwater repairs, things in outer space that are tremendously expensive to really simulate. And so I think industry is slowly creeping there, but I think we're just getting started on that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But so there's definitely innovation in particular settings. But
Mhm.
for me, the thing that wasn't really engaging was most of the games on the Quest were solo experiences. Like most of them
Yeah.
were. So they went for the high fidelity. We're going to push a lot of compute and pixels, and this is going to look shiny. But
Mhm.
then like every time I wanted to show somebody, it was like you were kind of like cut off because you're wearing something over your face. And so so maybe this is different with the Quest 3 because it has the pass through, and it's much more of a social experience. But part of that is that I already sank in the $500 for the Quest 1, and I got 2 of them. So for this was maybe I'll wait a little longer. It's like
Yeah.
I think we
Kind of wait
haven't
for it to play out.
yeah, I think we haven't saturated enough of the content creation for low poly and just like social platforms, because if you look at Roblox, like the high fidelity isn't there, and yeah, it's like Minecraft is the most popular game ever. So what did they get right that we're still chasing uh these triple A game title looks? But maybe there's something that you can make that's
Mhm.
compelling and brings people back. So I'm looking for that sticky thing that people don't mind putting on the weight and going into it. So
Yeah. I think that's a great way to describe it. And I think I've been grappling with the same issue of how do we talk about where we are right now. And I found myself referencing this book a lot. It's called Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. And he calls it a marketing book, but I think it's a really great book for developing a market for a new product overall. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about the model that he uses in that book, and then thoughts on how it applies to where we're at with the XR industry. So he says that when there's a new technology building out, right? Any new product, new service, new technology, like this goes from the radio to internet itself, to smartphones, to tablets, to smartwatches. Everyone doesn't adopt it all at once, right? Which makes sense. It's very common sense. He says that the adoption curve kind of looks like this, is that initially there will be a small group of innovators, and at this point the industry will be very niche. And these are the people who are like absolute diehard enthusiasts about this technology. And then slowly, as the technology gets a little better, there come this group of early adopters, and early adopters tend to be both of these groups. They tend to want the newest things, and they also tend to be okay with kind of a minimum feature set, which is in contrast to people who want complete solutions and people who want convenience. And this tends to be kind of the mainstream market. So the people who want the newest things are considered early market. The people who want complete solutions are considered the mainstream market, because this is when like a technology is arriving or has arrived. And I would say, like, certainly, like, read the book if you're interested in how technology gets adopted across different parts of the population. It's been a fascinating and very instructive read. And so let's think about, like, where, if we use this model, where are we now, right? So I think let's look at a couple of data points, and this is how I've been trying to verbalize it for myself to make it helpful to say where we are. I think overall we're jumping from innovators to early adopters. And if I'm to be even more specific, I think before the MetaQuest 2 and 3 and Apple Vision Pro got released, I think most of the people that would buy an AR/VR headset were people that were in the industry in some way. Like, there were very few people who bought it as recreational consumers alone. A lot of people were buying it that were in the industry. And Dominique, I think this kind of ties up with the podcast idea you were talking about, right? Like, we want to get more people who are not in the industry to engage. And I think that's beginning to happen now. So some of the numbers around this as well. And it's always interesting to get these kind of estimate statistics. I've picked up a few from a few of the previous years. So these are going to be approximations, but I think it's the range that matters rather than the specific number. So there was a poll that ran by Statista, who they found that about 18% of the US population owned a VR headset in 2022. And then there's about 16 to 25% of US population who has tried a VR headset in 2021, according to a survey that was happening at that point, run by Emerging Tech Brew. And so I think, the what I've heard, Jim, Homan, is it feels like we're just getting started. And I think that's a really accurate way to put it. And I think the data reflects the same as well. And I think where we are not yet is we haven't crossed this chasm into mainstream adoption yet. And in this book, Jeffrey Moore talks like at length about crossing the chasm. That's the whole title and the whole purpose of his book, because he says that there is a big difference between the people who use the technology in this early market phase and the people who want the complete mainstream solution. So what worked for innovators and early adopters might not be the same thing that works for the mainstream market. And it's very easy to fall into this chasm and get lost in it if we're not specific about the challenges of transforming for the mainstream market. so that's how I've been thinking about where the XR industry is now. And I would love to see, like, hear your thoughts and see if, like, is this resonating? Do you find this a helpful way to think about the state of the XR industry? So maybe, yeah, Jim, sounds like you've got something.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it exactly. I have a quote from Tim Cook. He went to the Apple store in Times Square and
Mhm,
opened it on February 2nd when they first released the Vision Pro.
mhm,
And he said, it's hard to go back to 2D, to the 2D world after
mhm,
you've been in the 3D world. You just don't want to do it. And
mhm.
so he's got the bug now. We've had 3D come in waves and waves and waves along with
Yeah,
virtual reality. And so
yeah,
it's clear now that he's bitten by that bug. And
yeah.
I think what he said that he was greeting like all the people that were coming in the store that were buying the Vision Pro. He said it
Mhm,
was a lot of developers. And
mhm,
so I think what has happened is Apple has done a good job of self-selecting, of
mhm,
having a bunch of self-selected customers who are very positive about the device. So they've given you a 14-day, no strings attached return window. And
mhm.
I've talked to developers who said, I couldn't afford one, but I bought it anyways and had it for that 14 days. And they actually wrote an app and published their app in the Vision OS App Store. And
Wow.
so I I've I've installed 91 apps so far. And a lot of them don't work quite right, but
Mhm.
that's fine. I don't mind that. I want to see how they develop. And
Yeah,
so, whereas a lot of people would say, well, this app doesn't work, I want my money back. I'm just waiting to see how things go with them
yeah.
and to see how it all turns out.
That is brilliant. And I I think that quote is very resonant too. Like, it resonates with me. It's hard to go back to 2D once you have experienced
Yeah.
3D, right? Um, and I also heard this other quote from Tim Cook. Uh, I think he like a couple of different times he's described the Apple Vision Pro as tomorrow's technology today. So, and I think that is such a beautiful way of saying that this technology is still really early, but we're going to put it out in the market anyway and see what it is that the developers with the 14-day free trial do with it, right? So I think that it really, tomorrow's technology today really encapsulates that really well. So yeah. Um, Dom, Homan, Lily, I would love to hear if you have any thoughts about this as well.
Holman, Lily, do you want to go first? I can go at the end.
Um, yeah. I don't really see that much of a difference between the Apple Vision Pro and the Quest 3. I think it's just a cost and maybe it has more technology packed into it, right? Like eye tracking and so forth. But yeah, I do think it's still, yeah, what Jim said about self-selecting developers that are really early adopters wanting to get into it, I think is right on the spot. So mostly it's people excited about doing something, and so Apple released it to them to see what they can do, because I don't think Apple really knows. Maybe the industry doesn't really know, so it's waiting for
Mm-hmm.
um, kind of industry to come up with some killer application, like, oh, we solved this thing for training doctors or nurses, and it's
Yeah.
fantastic, and we'll adopt it that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's happening slowly. But in terms of the mainstream market, most people, I think, cannot afford the luxurious 3500.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even the iPhones are like a third of that, a third
Yeah.
of the price.
Yeah.
Regarding you go to 3D, you won't want to go back to 2D if you go to 3D. I kind of somewhat disagree with that. I
Mm-hmm.
think I read an article that said that if VR was invented first, like, oh, you wear this headset and then you could be in 3R, the next thing you'd want to do is you'd want to, the next evolution in that is you'd want to be connected to the world around you with like these like the iPhone or the wearables. But that was before when they're talking about VR that sort of cut you off from the world. So maybe with this sort of pass-through augmented, maybe it is maybe it's a whole different story. But the idea was that if VR came first and you were cut off from the world, you'd want to be put back into the real world where it wasn't occluding you, and you'd have like this 2D device. And I actually do think that our some kinds of information are best disseminated in 2D. Like I don't need to see a 3-dimensional map. I want to see a 2-dimensional map because that limits the amount of information I can get at once. Your graph here is 2D and I can see like 2 dimensions. You know, there's like the X and the Y and I can disseminate. So the idea that we want to have everything in 3D, it kind of doesn't make sense to me. Like we're going to have meetings in 3D and that's just like, I don't want this. Nobody wants to have work meetings in 3D because on Zoom, I can just have the thing plastered in front of me and I don't have to also navigate spatially to get in front the best seat in the house and also like know who's talking to me. And if I'm surrounded by 3 people, I can't even know who's talking to me at the same time. So there's a lot of shortcomings in the way we're doing the 3D now that aren't as good as the 2D, I feel.
I think there's something that's always present in this exchange between 2D and 3D. You know, I've run across people who say, well, I don't really like 3D, but I don't see anyone walking around all day with a patch over one eye because they don't like 3D. I mean, we're born with 2 eyes. We see in 3D all day long. And so I know a lot of times 3D has been presented to people in a way such that it's flawed. It's not done properly, in which case it's painful to look at some things in 3D that aren't produced properly. But it's sort of the way that we live. So so that's the way I look at it, I guess.
Yeah, and I wonder if it isn't like, you know, it could be a both, like maybe it doesn't have to be a 2D versus 3D. 2D's had a lot of time and attention devoted to it. We do it really well now, and maybe 3D just hasn't had that time and attention devoted, and it needs a little mind share. It's not going to replace 2D, but maybe there might be a shifting of the balance.
I personally think that AI will be integrated into all the fields. AI is for sure. It's the next computing types of things. And everybody will be programmer or whatever you think, whatever you just using human language and you can generate something or automate something. That's for sure. And either 2D, 3D, it really depends. For example, in medical, I saw Med AI because recently I've been reaching out to a lot of healthcare people. They, for example, if you want to detect whether a patient is getting cancer or not, you just need image. You don't need like a spatial, you don't make 3D something. So I think it just depends on how you use it, the use case. So AI for sure, people needs it, right? Because it's a kind of like a very quickly and kind of like a detect. So in medical, AI for sure. But for the visualization, because Ori Imbar, the founder of AWE, said that XR or spatial computing is the interface of AI. So we just need, if you just want to know the answer, it's running right on the back end. You don't even need to visualize. That's fine. You use 2D, whatever interface or no interface, you just talk. That's fine. You don't need visualization. But if, for example, you want a vision, you want your eyes to see something, right? 90% of our learning perceptions is from our eyes, right? So anything that relates to you need a vision or training, education. I find out that, for example, pre-nurse training is very, very important and very costly. I search all the fields so far. Nursing needs human. And if you see nursing school, there are a lot of people from different industry. For example, like, and they go into nursing school. And the interesting part is that a lot of people, they couldn't attend to school. For example, they have kids, they have other stuff. So they are pretty busy and they are not nursing background. and they are jumping in to get certification. So they need remote training. So the VR, if you see a lot around Bay Area, a lot of nursing training schools start having VR lab to
Wow.
integrate inside their curriculum. It's not even a hobby, just try it. It's a real thing. And every state in America, every state has its own law certification and different ways. So, which means that if you create a VR training, then different state needs different programs. So, which I find out, wow, this creates a huge opportunity. And not many people are doing this great. Not
Yeah.
many, it's still super early, like probably innovation, like, because I am in Silicon Valley. If
Yeah.
things is not overspray here, then I
Yeah.
think the world, I think that this is the center, right? So there
Yeah.
are tons of opportunities in other field. So that's why I feel like, wow, AI is for sure needed. 3D is probably computer vision or training education. So there are a lot of gap between this, and especially I personally think nursing training is a very good market for XR creator to jump in.
Exactly.
That's my thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that it's now like a part of curriculum that's, that's a strong adoption indicator. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, and they have budget.
That's true. They do have budget. Yeah. And so I also want to put the kind of technology adoption that we're thinking about in context of a few other personal devices. So there seems to be pretty good data starting from about 1903 on how technologies have been adopted. And I love looking at these graphs because if you look at the general shape, of course, there's like ups and downs. It very closely follows that kind of curve that Jeffrey Moore is describing, the technology adoption curve. And we see that something like a household refrigerator, electric power, even radio and a microwave, they're pretty close to like fully household penetrated. They have like about 100% adoption in US households. A really interesting case, I think, is the landline, which is this kind of green color here. So it went through a really big up cycle, but it's on its down cycle now, which it shouldn't be surprising to any of us because we've seen how many people, like many of us, probably don't have a landline. But that's that down cycle of technology adoption too, is as new technologies come in, older technologies start to fade out. And then, of course, we have computers, social media usage, tablets, and then on this graph, it's kind of similar, but it's a little simplified. But I found the mobile phone rise really interesting here, and then the smartwatch rise as well. So what we see is that if we take about 18% of the US population owned a VR headset in 2022, about 16 to 25 tried a VR headset in 2021, we're still pretty early. We're still in that just getting started stage, where AR and VR are kind of poking their heads up, and spatial computing is kind of poking its heads up in the technology adoption landscape. And I wanna throw one thing out there, which is I don't actually see this as a competition between the different devices, because most of us, right, we have and we own and we use multiple devices in our day-to-day lives. Like, we're probably watching this from a laptop of some kind. We probably all have mobile phones of some sort. Some folks have mentioned liking or disliking tablets, but you might own a tablet. You may or may not own a smartwatch. So we already live in this world where we use and need multiple devices for different purposes. And so what I'm interested in is how does that the new balance of devices play out in future? So this is kind of a little context on taking this theory and applying it to real life and real data. And as we think about where we are now and how we made that first leap from innovator to early adopter, I want to talk about what are some of the strengths of large companies that allowed the industry to make that first leap. Because it's not easy. Like, even that leap is not an easy one to make. And I would summarize it into one kind of key point, which is, I think some of the big companies, specifically Meta, Apple, Microsoft, Google, they have huge financial reserves that they are able to invest in the development of an entirely new product category. And I've grown up in India. In India, sometimes we think of like a hydroelectric dam or the national highway system, or even the kind of the national road system. Um, these projects, like in India, we tend to think of them as they're so big that often either the government needs to invest in them, or it's only the largest private companies in partnership with the government who develop this kind of resource for the use of the general public. And I think maybe in America, there's probably a slightly different version of it, but I think it still holds. Like if you look at how much money Meta has been spending year over year, quarter over quarter, they've been spending billions of dollars each quarter to kind of keep this operation running. And so I think if you were to encapsulate it into one point, for me, this would be it. Like I think a lot of there's different ways that different parties contribute. So maybe a smaller startup would be doing R&D on one specific area. And I think the strength of some of these large companies is that they are able to pour in sustained capital investment over a period of time for it. And I think for me, it breaks down into two pieces. So piece number one is that like Apple, Meta, Google, they are able to pour in money into research and development, product development, and then able to energize the supply chain for a complete solution. And what I mean by complete solution is that, like, we probably are aware that the different headsets that we see are a combination of like a few thousand different technologies coming together. So there's technologies like the display system, optical tracking, hand tracking. There's the kind of curved glass manufacturing, the spatial audio. So there's a ton of different technologies which are each one of these is probably probably has a patent of its own. Each one of these is pushing the boundary. And I think the strengths that some of these really large companies bring is that they are able to make investments across a whole portfolio of new technologies, which can come together into a single product. And I think another piece is also that as they pour investment into this, people who are running pieces of the supply chain, right? Like if I'm someone who manufactures one part of the spatial audio system, when Apple or Meta say that we are in this for the longer term, it provides a level of trust and confidence that this industry is going to grow, and that I as a small manufacturer can make investments and start building out my reserve of products that I can then make available to the big companies to build their complete solution. So I think investing in that complete solution is something that is a strength of these large companies. And then the second piece is the marketing stories and dollars that companies have put in. So I think that this is a piece which is very close to me, because in order to make the leap, even from the innovators, or let's say industry professionals, to early adopters also need to be told and helped to see the vision of how can we use this technology in our daily lives, right? Like there's that very famous story of Henry Ford saying, if you asked a customer what they wanted, they would say they wanted a faster horse. They would not say that they wanted a car. And people usually use this story to illustrate how there's a certain danger in asking customers blindly what they want and just going after it. But I think it also illustrates that it's not the job of the customer to sit down and think about how this new technology might integrate into their lives. People are living their own lives, right? It's kind of the job of the people making the technology to help consumers understand how this technology applies to them. And I think that's where big companies like Apple up here and like Meta over here have invested in illustrating how people can use this, consumers can use this in their daily lives. And they've not only built the stories, which I think, the stories have been building for a long time, but coming back to the sustained investment, they've really put in the marketing dollars behind that effort and made sure that their marketing campaigns reach a huge base of people, right? And they've leaned on their strengths of the marketing campaigns that they've run, of course, for these specific products, but it is the result of them building their brand and investing in their brand over the past few decades. So I think these are a couple of the strengths that I see that have allowed the industry to make this first leap. And before I jump into kind of some of the strategic approaches, I'd love to see if any of this resonates or anything you'd like to add to it.
Well, it resonates with me very much. In fact, I want to extend your graph back a little ways of the technology. I just looked it up. The first stereoscopic viewer with 3D cards was invented in 1838. And in the Victorian era, 3D cards and viewers were their version of television. Every family had that as their main form of entertainment. And so it's been around for quite a while. And I sort of equate what you're saying with the space race. When we had the space race going on initially, like in the 60s, a lot of technology was developed that otherwise was not financially viable. It was not financially viable to develop semiconductors and integrated circuits, and the government shoving a bunch of money in that direction so that they could, do things in space made that possible. And initially you had vacuum tubes, and a vacuum tube is basically the equivalent of one transistor. And nowadays, I'd have to look up the exact number, but I've got a search running on my computer right now on this. But you can fit something like the entire electronics, like an iPhone 15, into one vacuum tube, which is like 80 billion transistors or something like that. So that's what the space race did. And I've used something like the Vision Pro. Apple started working on that around 2015. And Johnny Ive, who was a sort of a legendary industrial designer at Apple, and he's working on some new exciting projects outside of Apple nowadays. But he was the seed of a lot of the design of the Vision Pro specifically. And the way I think of engineering is that an engineer envisions the ideal solution to a problem, and then they come up with a practical solution that gives you 90% of that functionality. But I think with the Vision Pro, what Johnny Ive did is he came up with more of like a 97 or 98% solution. And so from an engineering standpoint, it's sort of overkill. But he did all of this stuff and threw all the spaghetti against the wall, and now we'll find out what sticks and what doesn't stick with that. I think it's sort of a foundational product, and products that come in the future will take advantage of what people are developing right now for that.
I love that. And I especially love I love the comparison to the space race, because I think how could that have been done by private enterprise alone?
I couldn't.
Or by small companies, like even if it's private enterprise is the biggest part of private enterprise. So I really love that comparison. And I think it's fascinating what has come out of the space race. I'm yet to be fascinated by what will come out of the kind of spatial computing landscape. I'm excited for that future. And so I think as we think about the strengths of these large companies as well, I want to acknowledge that they have two very excuse me. Let me just get some water. And so the two companies that we've been talking about, they have two very different strategic approaches that they're taking. And I am just so like excited to dig into the different approaches, because there's clearly no right answer. They're both taking different paths. So let's kind of take a peek into um, from the public documents that are available, my guess at how they're both approaching this. So I'm going to break it down into strategies for the content ecosystem, their strategies for their pricing, and then we'll look at a kind of a combined snapshot. So if you look at the content ecosystem, which is how I'm saying, like what can we actually do on these devices? I think there are a ton of different verticals out there. So of course, you can be entertained with a headset, you can do fitness, you can learn things, you can get excited about travel. You might even feel like you're actually traveling. And then there's also just what are some things that we use personal computing devices for in our lives? We use them to communicate with each other. We use them to work. We use them to record life. Record life is my way of saying take photos, take videos, keep a record of what we've been doing. And then we use them for things like shopping, and industries use them extensively for, like, there are devices which retailers will use, which are very tailored to retail, that medical professionals will use that are very tailored. So we use computing devices in a variety of different ways. And I think I'm mainly going to examine what Meta and Apple are doing, because I think they're the two strongest players in the industry right now. But it is also fascinating to think about what some of the other players are doing. But I think Meta has a kind of strategy in which they have really leaned hard into the entertainment space, and they've got presence across some of these others as well. So I know that there's Supernatural, Beat Saber, some of these more fitness oriented apps. I've seen some learning immersion apps where you can feel like you're in a cafe in France if you're trying to learn French. And there's, of course, you can go on Google Earth VR. I have seen like WhatsApp as an app on the Meta Quest. And I know Meta has been trying to lean into Meta for work as well. But I think the way the community is really adopting it is uh, people are the biggest use of the Meta Quest devices tends to be games and entertainment. People playing a bunch of games like Gorilla Tag, or like Beat Saber is a huge one, which I enjoy too. So I think Meta has worked their way into this strategy. And you even see this reflected if you open up the MetaQuest like app store. Just a really simple one. If you look at the way they categorize the way they categorize like the apps that they have, um, you will see categories for games, for sports, which I consider like within entertainment. You will see some categories for fitness and learning, but you don't really see a category for shopping in the MetaQuest App Store, which I think is really interesting, right? Like it's a sign of how they have invested in their app ecosystem and their content ecosystem. And on the other hand, I think the strategy that Apple is taking is I think they want more of an even distribution at this stage. I think if you look at some of the apps that are on the Apple Vision Pro, number one, they've taken the step of making it really easy for an iPad app and some of the existing Apple ecosystem apps to port over to Apple Vision Pro, which I think is a really smart step, because it means that suddenly you have like the millions of apps that have been developed across these different verticals are all available on the Apple Vision Pro. Now, many of them tend to be like direct copies of their 2D versions into 3D. So you'll see them in a screen on 3D, but it doesn't have special spatial characteristics necessarily, but they do have a presence there. And I think Apple has also leaned in, like they've made significant investments in communication with the way that they've integrated with FaceTime. They've made a significant investment in the recording live space because they've made a really big deal about how you can capture and view 3D images, 3D videos in here. And I've tried it out, and it's really a very magical experience. So I think Apple has made significant investments themselves. And I've also seen that in the way they've approached some of these other verticals. So they made a very concerted effort that on the day that the Apple Vision Pro shipped, which was I think Feb the 2nd, there were 600 apps developed specifically for the Apple Vision Pro. And if you look at some of the names of the companies that were developing these apps, Wayfair has an app, Lowe's has an app. I think there's been collaborations with J. Crew and some of these other retail and shopping partners. There have been collaborations across, Apple released it with a mindfulness and meditation app, which I consider part of fitness and health in general. So I think Apple, the way I encapsulate Apple's strategy is it feels like the first Apple Watch all over again, or even some of the first iPhones, because I went back and I looked at the announcement for the Apple Watch, and it was a really cool announcement, which talked about how you can quickly communicate and quickly text from your from your watch with quick replies, and you can also zoom in and out, and you can do these fun things where you draw a heart and then it shows up on your friend's Apple Watch and stuff. And then they mentioned fitness as they mentioned fitness, but it was almost a third thing that they mentioned, because it really felt like they were putting this device out there to the community with the full knowledge that they didn't know exactly what that killer use case was going to be. They didn't know what was going to make the Apple Watch take off. And then we saw in the subsequent years that, hey, fitness is what the community really geared in around, and fitness became one of the main utilities of the Apple Watch. But they didn't know that at launch. And so they wanted to kind of cast a wide net. And that's the feeling I get right now as well with the Apple Vision Pro, is they're casting a wide net, and they're being open to the possibilities of what's going to come up and what the community is going to develop going forward. So I think this is a little bit on the content ecosystem. And again, I'd love to open it up for discussion and see, does this resonate? Anything you'd add, or maybe, a different opinion that you have here?
I think you're exactly right. And we're just scratching the surface right now of this. I've been talking with a lot of Vision Pro developers lately, which we weren't able to do before the release. None of us could talk to each other because we're all under non-disclosure agreements. But one developer said, Jim, where do you think this is going to be in 5 years? I said, well, it depends on your ideas. It depends on what you're going to develop.
Yeah.
And it's a magnet for applications. I went to my eye doctor the other day, and I was talking about this, and he says, Jim, you have to bring this with you the next time you come to see me.
Yeah.
Try this out. Fortunately, he doesn't wear glasses, so he'll be able to try it. But and I know a surgeon who is interested in this and wants to work with me on some stuff. So it's just in the National Geographic photography, it's just exploding. There's just so many things, so many applications that are just drawn to this.
Yeah, I love that. And oh yeah, go ahead, Dom.
I think what you say is right, spot on, because I tried Vision Pro 3 times before it released, and right now I'm kind of getting involved with some Vision Pro projects. Yes, when Apple released this headset, which they have been planning, developing for so many years, without even know what to do, and they just want to give you this device and see how you can do with it. And we had a lot of problems, or we have a lot of use case. For example, it's so personalized, right? And it's hard to share the device. For example, even I think right now it's probably fixed, but when I was there last year, I
Mm.
wear it. You know, the hand-eye interaction, right? And every time when I put it down and put it back, I need to do it again because
Like
the
calibrate
thing,
again.
yeah, I
Mm.
have to do that. And also, for example, when I do my coding and I share to the developer who wants to debug for me, and he has to do this again. And
Yeah.
compare with Quest 3, right? Quest 3, everybody just share, right? And there's no, I don't know, prescription, which is probably like, you see there's controller, right? So you don't really need to do that hand-eye collaboration.
Yeah.
But you see Quest 3 right now is like doing, if you see the recent, even I know right now is version 62, but if you see the SDK Unity 60, the building blocks, they have eye-hand traction, even though I think Apple, the reason why they label themselves as a spatial computing device is because they want to get away from the connotation or the relationship between the old XR, VR. A lot of people first that talks about the Meta, because my background, I mean, I worked for Meta for a couple of years, and a lot of times when people's first time trying VR was that a roller coaster or some really like a free one, right? Free one out there,
Yeah.
and they had bad experience. So VR, a lot of people think of VR, they think, oh, I will get sick or da 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 da. But spatial computing is kind of another new types of name that
Yeah.
can get away, right? And
Yeah.
also, I would say, like, I mean, this mentioned in my book, like chapter 2. The interesting thing is that even though it's XR mixed reality and also Apple Vision Pro says spatial computing, but Apple Vision Pro used the same technology, kind of as Meta Quest. It's
Yeah.
like if you want to do spatial computing, you should be same as Magic Leap and HoloLens, right? You need to at least a transparent glass and projecting on top of it. It's
Yeah.
not. It's using the pass through, right? So it's kind of in a very weird area where
Yeah.
they are trying to say they are something, but they are not. And Quest is kind of very quickly merge. I mean, recently I read the news that Google, they are trying to make like a merge with Google and trying to make Quest as the new Android XR device. But it seems like the deal was not made it. But
Yeah.
imagine, and I also read like a Wall Street Journal. It seems like people said that Apple used to have a wall, right? A wall
Okay.
that prevent anybody to integrate. Like they make everything so hard, but now
Yeah.
the wall is cracking.
Yeah.
Means that you see Unity, polyspatial, right? Even though Apple is trying to sell its Xcode, I mean, compare with Xcode, Unity. Everybody want to use Unity, right? Xcode, it seems like a little bit, and Apple is, it feels like Apple is so distant or join this party too late. And if you see recent news that Mark Zuckerberg is going to kind of
Oh,
like trying to hint that the new AR device is going to happen, I can tell you I worked on that device. It's mind blowing. So yeah, so
wow.
it's amazing. Yeah,
Exciting.
it's
Wow.
just a lot of things will be very exciting this year. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, I can't wait. I think that's going to be fun. That's going to be really fascinating. Uh,
Yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
I think that number one, MetaQuest or Quest 3 does not have eye tracking. So yes, when you put on the headset, it has to calibrate to your eyes, and it measures the distance between your eyes and all that stuff, and it does the eye tracking. And as far as the spatial stuff goes, I know a lot of people, I saw a lot of YouTube videos where people say, oh, this spatial video, it's different from 3D. It's not. I've been in 3D for years.
I
And
see.
what they're seeing is there's an effect where if you're looking at a 3D image and you move your head back and forth, the image, like the Mona Lisa staring at you, the image sort of seems to follow you around. And
Yeah.
that's what they're thinking is different about this from 3D. I'm sorry, that's regular 3D. I've shot video on the iPhone 15 Pro Max with the spatial video. I've shot video with the Vision Pro. I've shot stills with the Vision Pro. It is all 3D. I'm sorry to tell people that, but it is 3D. And so I was sort of amazed when Tim Cook made that quote, because it's the first time I've heard the words 3D escape from his lips.
Oh, wow.
So, they don't want to call it 3D, and they also don't want to call it a headset. It's a spectrum computer, not a headset.
Not a headset. And I think, well, let's, so hold on to that thought, okay? Don't lose that thought, the spatial computer versus headset. I think it's a really interesting move. And I want to talk a little bit about how they're pricing, and then we're going to jump into that spatial computer headset kind of discussion. So I'm looking at some of the different company strategies for pricing, right? And what I'm trying to plot is what is like, what's the value for money that I'm getting versus the actual price of the product, and high value for money up here, high price over here. And there's by the way, I'm just going to do a plug. In India, especially in Hindi, there's this term called paisa vasool, which is basically getting your money's worth. And it's a very near and dear term to my heart, because I think, India tends to be a very price conscious space. So I'm channeling that into the value for money axis. Like, how much is this paisa vasool or not? And I think what I'll say here is Apple Vision Pro and Meta Quest, I think, have an interesting strategy. They both have different strategies, but they have an interesting one. So this dotted line is kind of your like 45-ish degree angle in which the value you're getting for the money justifies the price. And I think, like Meta Quest has the strategy that it will charge somewhere between like 300 to 500 to, there are some models which are more pricey. It ranges from affordable for some people to a slightly pricey end. But it's definitely like, creeping in. It's within that semi-affordable range. It's not a purchase you'll make just thoughtlessly or every day, but people can afford it. And I think for the price that they're giving us, they have a decent amount of features and quality and utility. And what I mean here is, I think they, and also going back to this slide, right? Meta has really over-indexed on entertainment and gaming. So sometimes if I'm making a comparison, I think of a Meta Quest headset as the equivalent of like a gaming laptop or a gaming console, because sure, you can do a lot of other things, like you can browse on the web on the Meta Quest, but it's really geared towards gaming. Just the way that, I've seen some of my friends use gaming consoles as full-blown computers, and they'll be browsing the web on them and stuff, but it's really geared towards gaming. And so I think it's got a lot of value for money for the price that it has. Now, Apple Vision Pro, I think, has taken a similar but slightly different path in which they command a much higher price, but they're positioning themselves as someone who provides a broader value. So Apple's mission, like Apple's vision, is that it says, yes, you can play some games on it, but you can also do FaceTime, you can do your work and productivity applications, you can do entertainment. And so I think the breadth of value they offer is broader than MetaQuest. And there are also, in my opinion, like I do see differences in the technology spec, like the quality of the visuals that you see is higher. The ease of interaction tends to be higher as well, because it's an app ecosystem that people are very familiar with, right? Like people have been using the same apps on iPad and iOS for a long time. So I think that's the way like Apple Vision Pro and MetaQuest are running their pricing strategies. And I think this is an interesting place to look at HoloLens and Magic Leap too, where they're actually priced very similar, or they were priced when they came out very similar to the Apple Vision Pro. You can get HoloLenses for cheaper now. especially on reseller websites and stuff. But I think a place where probably the general public found it difficult to leap into adopting a HoloLens or a Magic Leap 2 is that when you bought a HoloLens or Magic Leap 2, there just wasn't as much stuff to do on it. Like what can you do on it if you don't develop an app on your own, or if you don't download one of the very specific, very niche apps that are built out? It's hard to see that same utility and same value for money. And for me, that's why it kind of falls below that 45-degree value for money to price angle. And I think that's a big differentiator for the Apple Vision Pro. Now, I think the Meta Ray-Bans and Snap Spectacles are an interesting story too. Like, I would actually say that they have limited utility, but they're also going at a lower price. And so for the people who find them interesting, like I've used Meta Ray-Bans over the past 3 or 4 months. I thought it was really fun. It can do maybe 5 or 6 things. It can take photos, it can take videos, it can tell me a few basic, it can play music. I really love the music, but for the things it does, it was a fun device. I thought it was like decent value for money. Like, I tend to be a very price conscious shopper, and I got access to these Meta Ray-Bans through my work, so I was pretty thrilled about that, to have the chance to like try them out in real life, and I quite like them. And so what I would say is I would summarize the content ecosystem strategy and the pricing strategy into like the thing we really want to know is, what does this mean for adoption, right? Like, who is seeing adoption now, and which headsets are going to be adopted in future? I think people sometimes set it up as like which one is going to win. So I want to talk a little bit about that here. So I think the interesting piece is that if you look at which headset is being adopted versus which, and is it being adopted in a broad ecosystem across a broad applicability or a more narrow focused applicability, I think this is where you see Meta and Apple like deeply differentiate their strategies. So Meta has decided to go after relatively high adoption in a very narrow targeted use case, right? Like they want everyone to buy a Meta Quest and play really fun games on it, or watch movies and be entertained using a Meta Quest headset. And so they want to capture that focused, targeted slice of entertainment. And they're going for high adoption within that, but not like they haven't made a lot of investments outside that to the same level. Versus Apple, right? It has priced its headset at $3,500 before taxes, before paying for the inserts. So clearly, I don't think that they are going for a high amount of adoption just yet with the Apple Vision Pro, right? But what they have done is they have made significant investments, as we saw, across the content ecosystem. They've built communication apps. They've encouraged the community to build shopping apps. There's a plethora of like product development and product visualization apps, which they've encouraged the community to build. So they've really invested on that ecosystem. And I think the place that both these companies want to go is here. Like, they want their device. It doesn't have to be the device that they currently have, but some future device of theirs. They want it to be broadly adopted across like many verticals, and they want it to have high amount of adoption. So they want a high percentage of users to be adopting it as well. So I think the way it's currently set up, right? Like, Meta has high adoption within entertainment, and in order to be successful in future, I think they'll need to target more verticals going forward. So they'll have to expand into maybe fitness and grow fitness out. Then they expand into learning. Then they expand into shopping. And they kind of build out all the verticals until they've got high adoption across different verticals. Apple, on the other hand, I think needs to make its device more accessible to a broader number of people, and also figure out like what actually sticks about the Apple Vision Pro. What is that thing that helps people to use the Apple Vision Pro again and again, so that a lot more people can buy it and are using it very often. So I think that's the space that they go. And over here, I want to give an especially big shout out to like Meta Ray-Bans and Snap Specs. I think these devices they probably have low adoption and a low ecosystem because they're very targeted specific devices. Like they have 3 or 4 things that they do and they do them well. I am very interested to see how Meta leverages the two exciting devices that it has. It has the Quest, it has the Ray-Bans, and I see them as sort of 2 ends of the spectrum. Like the Meta Quest is slightly higher price, slightly higher like physical. It's a headset, it's not glasses, so higher physical footprint on your face. And it has way more things you can do versus the Meta Ray-Bans are smaller, sleeker, lighter, cheaper, but they can do way less things. So how is Meta going to leverage these two to eventually make it there? So I think this is how I sort of encapsulate the different strategies and how I see the future unfolding, whether it's Meta investing in more verticals or, Apple has termed their device a Vision Pro. And there's like speculation is rife around, is there going to be just an Apple Vision, or is it going to be an Apple Vision Air version of things coming up soon? So this is the part that makes me super excited. Like what's coming up next? What is on their product roadmaps coming up next? So again, let me take a pause and kind of see if if any of this stands out as interesting or resonates with you and what you would like to add here.
I wanna chime in for this. I really love what you pointed out, and I think we need to go back to the root where they start, right? Facebook, Meta from Facebook, it's an app. It's an app. They didn't have hardware. So it's from single app, right? And grow and start buying other apps and grow together. And the Quest is their only hardware. So they start building that, right? And start with game because it's connected. Because at Meta, the core value is we want to connect with people. We are the social XR. So start with game. So that everything makes sense. Start with their root, which is one single app called Facebook. And Apple is a hardware company. They have all the different hardware. Their first product start from the desktop and later on mobile and later on. So all the hardware, people start creating apps on top of it, right? They probably don't really own, they probably have some apps, but the entire ecosystem is already being built. And Meta is different. Meta is start from single one app and later on purchase Palmer Lucky's Oculus Rift and start building, and Quest is their only hardware. So Apple already have a nest of tons of developers ecosystem, and they are start from hardware. So all the data they can share, for example, like why I start telling people, if you want to develop Vision Pro, start with healthcare. Why? Because, for example, Apple has everybody's healthcare information here or there for Apple user. So for example, your breath, right? Your heartbeat, everything is in Apple system. And Apple, even though there are some data leak, but compared with other company, the data is relatively secure.
Relatively,
It's not absolute, it's relative secure. So I would say that Apple does. So once Apple has the Vision Pro, it's just one of the division of the hardware, but it's the 100% for Quest. So I totally agree with you that Meta needs to. So that's why Meta has Meta for Work, or they wanna, and they also have the enterprise liaison, right? And Apple, since it's already built for enterprise, they just that headset is just one of the small thing, right? And they also cancel the car, right? They want to create all the hardware, but they cancel the car. They focus on AI. So you can see all those like a very close to you, right? Start from computer a little distance, phone a little closer, This is wear on your hand, and now is wear on your eye. So
Okay.
it's totally can get all the data from you, right?
Yeah.
So this types of very personal ecosystem versus Meta from single Facebook app, purchase some other app, trying to purchase. So Mark Zuckerberg pretty much just purchase and kind of, I don't know, inspired by other people's ideas, such as Thread versus X or Twitter, right? So it's more like a more focus on connect and social aspect. So game makes sense. And Apple Vision Pro it's already there. They hardware base, all the hardware, gather all the stuff. But as far as I know, I mean, this is just the baby step. But I can see all the enterprise, right? Connect together. Apple will be really powerful. However, they just need to figure out how for people to access, for more developer to jump in, for more people to want to learn. Xcode versus Unity. You can tell Xcode need to hard code the interface, but the Unity you just drag and drop. So I can see that there are pros and cons and totally complement together. They are owning different pies and they are trying to go to the other way. So that's my take on.
Love that. Love that.
I'd like to throw in a couple of statistics.
Mm-hmm.
The Quest 2 outsold the Quest 3 nearly 3-to-1 on Amazon over the holidays.
That's impressive, right?
Yeah. And so in the fourth quarter of 2023, Meta made their entire, virtual reality division made $1 billion. Apple sold at least $700 million worth of Vision Pros, largely in 3 days.
Yep.
And also, if you're developing for these two platforms, basically the highest tier of Apple's developer organization costs $99 a year. And as far as I know, if you're developing using Unity, you have to spend $2,000 a year to do that.
Wow. Oh my. Okay.
And so what would you, there's a question of the app price as well. Oh, well, and also my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that Meta takes 30% cut of whatever you sell in their app store, whereas Apple, if you're making less than $1 million, takes 15%. So would you rather sell into a market where there's been a huge amount of money already spent by the customers? There's a big question. How much can you sell a Pro app for versus a Quest app? And so there's a lot of interesting questions in there for developers.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And it's a hard decision to make, right? Because it's not going to be I know there are some solutions out there for you code it or you develop it once and you deploy to the different platforms, but but it's different. Like it's difficult. And I don't think all the kinks have been smoothed out yet. I think most of them have not been smoothed out yet. So yeah, I agree. I think it's a really important question probably on most developers' mind is which platform do I build for, right?
Yeah.
I just saw one of the audience said that, would you say Meta Ray-Ban has a higher adoption? Yeah, I will leave to you guys.
That's an interesting question.
I'll type that in right now and see what the answer comes out as.
Yeah.
I would say, because I try Meta Ray-Ban generation 1 and generation 2, pretty much I heard a lot of complaint about why it's only, take a photo, take pictures, and because their core is more like for audience. So they are designed for streaming to your Instagram, streaming to your Facebook. But a lot of enterprise people, I heard a lot of founders said that they want a feature which is kind of record a video, just like a small screen, like Google Google Glass, just a
Google Glass.
small one, right?
Yeah,
And talking to their team. For example, sometimes the CEO, CTO go out for conference and see something really fun, want to record, but not really live streaming on their Instagram, but more privately to their team, right?
Their
So
team.
I think Facebook is still thinking about, oh, a lot of creators want to live streaming, but as for enterprise, all they want is more private and not really linked to their Facebook, Instagram, but just like talk to their team. For example, like look at like a CES or GDC or Southwest, right? Like take stuff and maybe there's a way they can circle around or they can make notes or they can record some voice. They say if that happens, this will be boom for enterprise. But unfortunately, they just design, I mean, using the current technology for the people who do like a streaming YouTuber, those stuff. But I mean, if they think a more enterprise way, just add a little bit feature and this can help so many people solve the problem. Yeah, so that's my take on.
I just got an answer from Perplexity. It says that 300,000 units of the Ray-Ban smart glasses have been sold. What's the price on those? You have one, Dominique, right? How much did you pay for it?
A few $100 when I was back in Costa Mesa, and I even wear that Ray-Ban glass and went to Habit buy hamburger, and nobody noticed me, and I even record the entire thing. But the thing about it is that I upload to my Facebook or Instagram, which I personally think if they can have another hub to sync, maybe Slack or some other stuff, more enterprise use, and also having some visual, just a small little thing, augmented a little bit screen, or something for commenting, I think this will, or Zoom, right? This will go really, really big. That's, yeah. Go ahead.
It's smart from the standpoint of Meta, right? That it feeds into Facebook because that helps their ecosystem.
Yeah, but they are more like an app. But what if, for example, Facebook, I mean, I am millennial, right? And I feel like nobody on my Facebook is posting anything. It's pretty much all ads, right? And everybody right now is on LinkedIn, so we do LinkedIn Live, right? And Instagram, I personally think Instagram has so many ads right now. And all my friends just share what they eat, what's the purse is. And for people like me who are no interested of reading that, so I kind of give up that. Snapchat, I have no friend on Snapchat. TikTok is too young. I don't have friends on there. So, I mean, pretty much, I think they probably need to study some target audience and help people like, you know, us, right? Trying to do something. Yeah, go ahead.
Here's an interesting stat. 1 out of every 2 people on the planet has a Facebook account. 1 out of every 2 people on the planet has a YouTube account. 1 out of every 6 people on the planet has a LinkedIn account. So just some interesting stats I figured I'd throw in there.
Yeah. I am interested in those stats, like, and I think the double click that I'd want to do on those stats is, you know, how many people are active and how often are they active on their Facebook accounts? And I'd be very curious about that, because I think I went through a large period of like being very active in about 2008 through 2016. And then it really dropped as I got into Instagram. And then I reactivated a little bit because I realized that like my parents and a lot of my like, you know, relatives and my parents' friends and people who I really care about, like they're active on Facebook. So I am curious about the activity levels. I've gone through ups and downs. And Jim, thank you for also bringing up the, like from Perplexity, the number of 300,000 pairs. I think that's a nice way to look at it. So we had, you know, like Apple has sold around 200,000 units of their device. Meta Ray-Bans have sold around 300,000 units. And Meta on the Quest devices, I believe, has sold around 20 million cumulatively. So it's a like almost a 10x on like the unit count.
And almost all of them being being Quest 2s.
Yeah, like the large majority are really Quest 2s, and then like Quest 3 and Quest Pro come in. And so I think to answer that, the question that had come in, like, do we consider Meta Ray-Bans high adoption? I think it depends on how you look at it. I think it's a limited utility device. And so for the things that it does, it's almost like the Meta Ray-Ban. I almost compare it to um a Polaroid or a digital camera. Like, a digital camera is a limited utility device. It's a very targeted utility device. It's meant to take photos, take videos, and that's how I think of the Meta Ray-Bans as well. And for what it's doing, I think it's got interesting levels of adoption. Like, I don't know if it's healthy or not. I think it's healthy levels of adoption for the things that it's doing. But then if you expand out to like Meta, the Quest devices, they do a lot more. And therefore they have about like 10x the amount of adoption that a Meta Ray-Ban would have.
Also, something that I look at is how much money have people spent on these things. And to me, that indicates how much they're willing to spend on apps. And so like I said, I've installed like 91 apps, and a lot of them have been paid apps on the Vision Pro. And $20, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting question. If you're developing an app, how much revenue can you get from it? You've got so many users out there. There's sort of a calculation. How many users do you have? How much are they willing to pay for apps? So forth. So what are your development costs as well?
No, that's entirely accurate, because we got to remember, it's you pay like whatever amount of money you pay for the device itself, but then that's not the end of a customer's spend.
Right.
So
I mean, even the Apple Care is for the Vision Pro is something like $400 or $500.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so you've got to buy that, because what if you drop the darn thing?
Yeah, what if you drop it? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I just saw some people post their Vision Pro crack in the middle. And it seems like it's probably from manufacturer. If you Google like a Vision Pro glass crack, and it's like without any force. Like, for example, I didn't drop it, I didn't do anything, it's just crack itself. So if you Google it, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, sometimes you see, like in the past, everything is very sturdy, and now because too much like a super dedicated expensive chips or form, sometimes it's very easy to get cracks. So if you kind of pull on the Reddit, a lot of people kind of see, wow. And I also see one of my kind of friend posted, his background was he worked for Apple in the past as engineer. He posts, a lot of people ask him what to buy, and people just said, if you want to try the best UX design, you want to try best, you want to see what's the opportunity, possibility, and best experience, get Vision Pro. But if you just want to develop something or just get your prototype works, then Quest is the best. So far, I feel like Apple's still figuring out what what we can do about it. They are trying to understand, but Quest 3 pretty much being figured out, which is the good thing about being the first or pioneer to get into the market. So they already have an ecosystem now. They just need to stably get in. And before we compare Ray-Ban and the Vision Pro, I think maybe we need to wait until the new AR headset, which I don't want to reveal the name, but the upcoming one, you just Google, Mark Zuckerberg is trying to announce something and trying and I don't want to reveal anything because I don't want to go after. So
absolutely.
there's something is coming up. I think using that new device versus Apple Vision Pro is more fair, because Ray-Ban is not meant for XR or spatial computing. It's just taking photos. It's just a camera. Yes.
I just looked up this cracking issue, and some speculate that the issue might be related to overheating when charging the Vision Pro in a case or with the cover on, whereas others suggest it could be a manufacturing problem or design flaw. The cost to repair the cracked glass is expensive, with a $299 deductible for Apple Care users and
Oh,
$799 for those without it. Apple has not yet officially recognized the issue as a manufacturing defect, which could affect the warranty coverage for affected users. Now, this is Perplexity. That's an LLM. It could be hallucinating or whatever. I don't know. You'd have to check you'd have to check articles on this, but that's what they're saying about it so far.
that's going to be an interesting one. I have an Apple Vision Pro as well, and yeah, I'm gonna keep on at it, and I'm gonna check if I bought Apple Care or not. I hope I did. So
I was thinking the other day whether I should leave the cord attached to it when it's in the case, and now I know don't do that.
Yes, Reddit has spoken, so now we know. All right, so kind of, like wrapping up on this section, this is, so I hope it's more clear as to, what we've been talking about when we say we're jumping from innovators to early adopters, but we really haven't crossed into mainstream adoption yet. We're still just getting started. And I think I want to spend a little bit of time also talking about I kind of flip back and forth, but I think we are firmly in an early adopter market right now. We might even be in the chasm, or I think we're all trying to cross this chasm right now. And so I want to spend a little time talking about why is it called a chasm? And what are some of the specific challenges that need to be solved for in order for us to make that jump into mainstream adoption, right? Because we have very important work to be doing. So let's kind of look at some of the challenges and the road ahead. So I think from what I've been able to pick up, these feel like some of the big challenges with adoption and usage. And this is by no means exhaustive. These are some food for thought for us. So I think the way I would divide it up is I think there's a large unaware majority, right? So we said that about 18% of the US population own a VR headset. About 16 to 25% have tried a VR headset, which is kind of these two buckets. But that really means that about 80% of people have never tried a VR headset. And they may never even think to try one because, and I've heard people around me say that, I just never thought of myself as the type of person who would have a VR headset. So people sometimes don't even see themselves as part of the user base. They don't even think that this technology applies to them. And this was my brother who said it, all right? Like, I work in this industry, and my brother was saying that. And he said that because I bought him a Meta Quest 3, and he was like, wow, I'm so glad you did, because I would never have thought to get one for myself. Like, I just never imagined myself as one of those type of people. So I think there's a large, unaware majority. And then I think, when we say that there are about 20% of people, like between 18 and 25 percent of people who own a VR headset. Well, ownership is step one, but how often do people use it, right? And Homan, right in the beginning, said that, yeah, I have the first Quest, the second Quest, and they're kind of collecting dust. And so that's my second question. Like, there's a bunch of data which says only about 50% of people who own a headset use it weekly or daily. So think about that, right? People have spent over $200, over $300, sometimes up to $500 and more on a VR headset, but they're not using it more than once a week. They're not using it more than once a month sometimes. So I think that's the big question of why do so many headsets collect dust? Why is that experience not sticky enough and engaging enough? And And when these, especially when the minority, the people who already own headsets are disconnected, this has a detrimental effect for everyone involved, right? Because it means that this third piece comes in. Enterprises, I think, remain unconvinced, and rightfully so, because look at the type of data that they're looking at, right? They have big, like, $1 billion businesses to run. They already have their established base of customers. For them, they see that there's less than 20% of people who own or use an AR/VR headset. Of that 20%, people are not as engaged as they would like. And so enterprises, and this is the perception of enterprises, right? This isn't necessarily like my personal opinion, but enterprises see this and they're hesitant to invest, right? They want to know, if I spend the time and the money and a team of like 20 people or something to build an AR or VR application, who is actually going to use it, right? So enterprises tend to think of this as a Horizon 2 or a Horizon 3 effort. So they don't think that it's really applicable to their own business in the next 1 to 3 years. They think like, okay, I'm going to wait. Let's see who starts buying and using these headsets. And then maybe in 3 to 5 years, that's like the Horizon 2, I'll start thinking about it. And maybe in 5 to 10 years, it's actually going to take off. That's Horizon 3. So I think these are the big challenges that as an industry we need to tackle to make that second leap into mainstream adoption, right? This is what takes us from early adopter, where we are now, into mainstream, where we want to be. And of course, I want to give the due mention to like size and weight and price as well. These are challenges which companies absolutely need to work on. Like, they need to make the size something that is more usable for mobile situations. The weight needs to come down so more people feel more comfortable using it. The price needs to come down so it's more accessible. But I think these are some of the big challenges. And I'd love to maybe, like, if you, Dom, Jim, and Lily, if you've got like 30-second takes on how this sounds, I'd love to hear that. And then I want to spend some time thinking about what do we do to tackle some of these challenges as well. I don't just want to leave it at like everything is doom and gloom. I think we can tackle some of these challenges. So yeah, if you were to give me your quick take on challenges, I'd love to hear it.
I think
Go ahead.
I've been talking to a lot of Vision Pro developers,
Mhm.
and what they've been telling me is that they missed the boat, like when the Apple Watch came out, for example, and they didn't want to miss the boat this time.
Okay. That's an interesting one. So there's like that feeling of we're on the cusp of something big, and I want to make sure we ride the wave. Okay, that's a fun one. And Dom, tell us your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I do think that, yeah, just like just like you said. And I remember Amy Lemaire, who is the investor of XR Woman Fund. She mentioned there are 3 C's for XR hardware to rock, because in
Mhm.
order for software reside on hardware. So it's
Mhm.
also applicable for the entire community. I feel like that. But she mentioned more like hardware aspects. 3C, comfort. It needs to
Mhm.
be more comfortable. Cost,
Yeah.
the cost needs to go down.
Yeah.
Content, we need more content. So I think 3C's is like the yeah, and also I do think yeah, you see right now, according to your statistic in the previous slides, this we are just in the baby step. And I
Yes.
feel why Google wanna trying to partner with, I feel Google lose all the confidence about themselves. For example, you see Gemini, right? The
Mhm.
AI chatbot they launch, and it's not as good as OpenAI, and
Mhm.
which is very weird because Google has all the information online. It's the largest search engine. Why the AI model was it couldn't even compete with OpenAI, which is a startup. I was
Yeah.
surprised. And also
Mhm.
Google Glass was the first one to invent. Why Google was trying to partner with Meta and make an Android. Some
Yeah.
people said that why not Google just join the game? And also you see there are so many Android app, right? So
Yeah.
there might be a chance that Google can can do things, but I feel like Google just lose all the confidence. Start with the OpenAI game and everything, and people said that the future of search engine might be replaced by AI chatbot or more like a personal assistant. So I can see that Google is start losing its leading position, and the Meta is going up for this types of like a
New round.
new round. And yeah, so I mean, and Meta is going to launch the really, really exciting thing, which is echoing. If you go to, I mean, I post on I put on my book, in my book, but if you go to Meta, Meta has its own vision of future
It
computing.
has a roadmap. Yeah, it has
It
a
has
roadmap.
a roadmap, which it doesn't even necessary to have a glass. It's like I can do things. I can connect with people virtually.
Yeah.
But we can do things together. It's
Yeah.
not really like a 3D, whatever D you imagine, but it's more like even though you are in different. So if you watch Lex Freeman and Mark Zuckerberg, in one of the podcasts, they use the photorealism.
The photo of the icon.
Yeah, and using Quest Pro, right? So even though they are far away, but they feel like they are really real together. So this is something that right now, even though there are chunky headset, but the headset will go smaller and smaller by super powerful chips.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's no headset or anything.
Yeah.
And then the goal, the final goal, we are not talking about the technology just to assist us to achieve the goal, but we can be like, for example, three of us right now is flat on the screen, but maybe in the future we open our eyes and we are so real and we don't feel the gap between like, and there's no, like a headache, and we just say something, right? And something will auto-generate, right?
Yeah.
In this world, for example, like we were talking about, we are going to like, for example, have a trip to somewhere and something, the interface just auto-generate here. And we can just like
that would be so fun.
yeah, and there's no screen like an interface, because you see like Apple pretty much take out all the controller, right? So you just say things and you snip things. And if you don't like it, you just, drop it and throw it away. Everything is so natural, because I can tell you, when I was like writing a book, I put tutorial in one of the principle, but I interviewed somebody in working in a very big company. He told me that take out the tutorial, put tutorial under some other principles. Tutorial in the future, pretty soon, we don't need a tutorial.
I like that.
Yeah.
Just
So
pick it up and use it. Yeah, I would
yeah,
love.
you just like wear it and you talk to it or you manipulate it. It's just so intuitive, like a phone, right? Or like anything, like you use pen and pencil, right? It's just so intuitive that you don't even need to think.
You don't need a tutorial. You just use
Yeah,
it.
you don't need a tutorial.
Well,
So yeah, go ahead.
I think we're about to have a new type of learning, and I do this constantly now, where instead of reading articles and reading a book or going through a series of courses, I just ask questions to an LLM, and gradually I just fill in all the gaps and figure out what I need to know.
That's lovely. I love that. Yeah. And this is a nice segue. This is a nice segue of like, how do we gain familiarity with, a device category that most people are unfamiliar, unaware of? How do we make it so that it's so intuitive and so interesting and so easy to use, right? So these are some just like thought starters of how we can kind of make that second leap and how we work through these challenges. So kind of going one by one, I think when we talk about there being a huge unaware majority, one of the big problems is awareness. And so maybe, I really like those 3 C's, the comfort, cost, and content. And I might want to add a fourth C, which is consciousness. Like, is someone even conscious that this device category exists and that this product could change their life in a very meaningful way? And I think we need to help people do that, right? I think Apple has made some good strides here, because you can walk into any Apple store and book a demo, and for free they will let you try on an Apple Vision Pro, so that people who never even understood how this could apply to their lives can maybe see it for themselves. And experiencing is very much believing in the world of AR VR. There's a big difference between seeing Marques Brownlee's review and trying on a headset for yourself. So I think that's a big one. But I think that, like, some challenges remain. Like, I don't know how many people know that they can go and book that kind of demo in an Apple store. And I think even fewer people know, for example, that they can go to a Best Buy and try out a MetaQuest headset, because I don't think people even think that that's a thing they can do. But I think helping people try headsets, and try AR and VR and spatial computing for themselves, I think that could be a big game changer in helping more people become aware and start on that adoption curve for themselves. And then a couple I'll mention here is, and I think the disconnected minority. This is a space where we, as members of the XR industry, but not part of the big companies, this is where we make a huge difference. Is we need to build the killer spatial apps. Like, we need to build those social experiences which engage people, so that the headsets don't collect dust anymore. Right? Like, what is it that we can build on these headsets that is so special, so spatial, that you find yourself coming back to a headset again and again, right? Is it that when I'm doing a home search, I can see all the homes mapped out, and I can see the local geography and the local neighborhood, and I can get a feel for the neighborhood in the headset in a way that I couldn't get on a phone. So, what are those killer experiences that people will keep coming back to again and again? And how are they social? Because if like 50% of headset owners use their headset weekly or more, can they pull in and reactivate some of the users who aren't using the headset as often? So that's maybe, like, my take on solving the second challenge. And then the third one's really interesting. And this is like within enterprises, like within large corporate companies, there tends to be like the main business, which is running the multi-million or multi-billion-dollar business and making sure that they are financially sustainable. And there tends to be like this innovation group, which is building out the fun, cool AR things. And I think it's really important for the communication and dialogue within the enterprise to be healthy, because the folks that are kind of running the day-to-day business, and they're doing a very important job, those folks, they're not the experts in AR and VR, right? The innovation team tends to be that expert in AR and VR. And I think it's very much incumbent on the innovation team to paint the picture of that vision of how AR and VR can transform the day-to-day business. And painting the vision is a very important responsibility, but it's only responsibility number one. Because, as we said, enterprises kind of think of AR and VR as something that'll come up in the next 5 years, next 10 years. It might not be a right now thing. So along with painting that vision of how it will transform the business in the next 5 years, I think it's also incumbent on that innovation team to lay out, like, what are the stepping stones? What will we be doing in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So like in year 1, 2, 3, 4, that will build up to that year 5. What are we doing quarter by quarter that are very tangible, very measurable? Like, is it that we are picking a small, it might be a small segment, like maybe we just want to target all the teenagers who are using MetaQuest and give them a really fun experience of, interacting with their favorite celebrities or shopping for items on a MetaQuest. But we want to make sure that we build a key strategic advantage for the company with that target segment, and that segment will keep growing and we'll grow with them. So I think it's important to paint that picture. So I think these are some of the solutions, and I know we're coming on time now, so I'm going to start wrapping up. But I think it's an exciting journey that we've been on, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Yeah.
I think there's one criteria that's critically important that we haven't mentioned at all.
Oh, let's hear it. Yeah.
I've been around for a while. I've seen wave after wave after wave of 3D come along.
Mm-hmm.
And I think an important criteria is that with any of these things,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to sit on your couch and watch TV and look at your social media. If you
Yeah.
can't do that
Yeah.
with the device in question, then
Yeah.
it's nobody's going to want to use it repeatedly. And the Meta Quest 2 falls into that bad category. You cannot do that. With the
Yeah.
Vision Pro, it's no problem. Probably with the Quest 3, it's no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
But with Quest 2, you just can't do it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Like you're so right. Like a key activity that we do as humans is we sit on our couch and we scroll social media and watch TV. Like everyone needs to be like a chill couch potato at some point in their day just to remain sane and human. And yeah, I think it's a key activity. You're so right, Jim. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do echo to your 3C. You want to add conscious, and I want to add community. I think community is so important because sometimes you see without a community, we don't even know you have so many great ideas, right? You see like right now we still have 35 people watching online, and yeah, we have such a high engagement. One of our very high engaging like a talk today. So you see, like I would say that without a community, then people don't even know where to seek for those information. I think community is important. And also I do think that just echo you said, you see, I mean, big enterprise, right? Right now you see all the layoff stuff. Why people are laid off? They just want to trim off that something is not making money, right?
Yeah.
And they want to make the investor happy. And also AI is not necessarily inside this. It's just train the kind of like a additional staff that is probably in the innovation stage that trying to bring the new things. But because currently it's not making money, so it's getting trained off. I would say that you see even Zuck, right? A long time ago when I was at Meta, there was a point that the stock fall into $80, $80. And during that time was like, oh, when I was working there, I feel like, is this company even, from 300 and jump down into 80?
That's
But
big.
you see, Zog still putting tons of money. If we go back to one of your chart, you see the expense is much exceeding than you see that chart, right? The expense, yes. And earning money is just a little bit. But that really helps you because, for example, like without this, imagine if Facebook didn't jump into XR, right? Focus on Facebook, this thing, right? You see right now a lot of people drop, right? And a lot of social dynamics, people doesn't even use Facebook, even though they have a lot of zombie accounts, right? So you see like those types of stay there and not doing any innovation couldn't get you anywhere, like a Xerox, and we see like a lot of like camera company Canon, right? Digital camera. So I do think that putting money into innovation sectors like, Store A, right? When I saw Store A got closed, my heart sank because actually I was contract at a Store A in the past. It was such an amazing sectors, tons of great innovations. So I do support that. Maybe, short term, you see like you earn money, you cut, right? And you save some money, but see the long term, right? Still need to put some kind of investment to see where we can go. And spatial computing is such a amazing stuff. And it's the future interface or future computing system visualization, even though you need to put a lot of effort in. But you see NVIDIA, Open AI, all those companies who invest hard on the hardware or invest hard in the future, they are the future, right? So I do think that the company, and the upcoming start from March 30th, we will start bringing the enterprise that doesn't know XR, that we are trying to figure out how XR creators to help them to
Yeah.
do better things. And that will be, I don't even know how it will go, because people don't even know what's XR, VR is.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
are trying to, but it's exciting. It feels like we are marking, or we are like the Columbus, right? We
Mhm.
are going to the new territories that the enterprise doesn't even aware of Vision Pro. What can they do? But we are bringing the new stuff to
Mhm.
their territory
Yeah,
and
it's very
let them
exciting.
to understand. Yeah.
All right, super exciting. I'm gonna close out the talk and say like it's been a huge pleasure to be here. Dom and Jim and Lily, thank you so much for inviting me. And I love talking about some of this stuff because sometimes if I'm just thinking about it in my own head, I don't know if I'm hallucinating things or if I if I actually have something there which is like a good nugget of information. So it is really great to talk about it with you, to hear your ideas. And I learned so much today. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Aditi. This is one of our most successful talk. And thank you so much. And I will follow up with Aditi for the new series of podcasts.
So excited about that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. And